Introduction to peer tutoring. What is peer tutoring? Peer tutoring includes a range of approaches in which learners work in pairs or small groups to provide each other with explicit teaching support. One type is reciprocal role tutoring, where learners alternate between the role of a tutor and a tutee. A second type is fixed role tutoring, which is cross-ability tutoring in which one learner, who is often older, takes a tutoring role and is paired with a tutee or tutees who are often younger. Are schools using peer tutoring as a targeted academic intervention? In 2013, the Sutton Trust surveyed teachers when the EEF Teaching Learning Toolkit had been released. Only 1 in 100 teachers said they would use peer tutoring at the time. So 5 years later, a Teacher Tap survey in 2020 surveyed teachers to ask if they would consider using peer tutoring if COVID-19 restrictions permitted this. Only 4% of primary and 12% of secondary considered this as an approach that they would use. Moving on to 2025, from the EEF Pupil Premium Review, 90% of schools use research evidence to justify selected strategies in their Pupil Premium statement. Yet peer tutoring has been regularly stated as one of the high-impact, low-cost interventions for schools. So in 2025, Whatwood Education completed a North East Pupil Premium Strategy Review for the North East Combined Authority. Of the 525 primary schools who had published an in-date Pupil Premium strategy, only 2% were using peer tutoring as a targeted intervention. So there's been a disconnect between what the research evidence says and what schools are using when it comes to peer tutoring. So what does the current evidence say? So the Education Endowment Foundation Teaching Learning Toolkit identifies peer tutoring as a highly effective strategy. It is based on extensive research and large-scale trials and is recommended when choosing an intervention to support your school or setting. So going into the evidence a bit further, there is a slightly higher impact of 7 months for secondary pupils than primary at 5 months. Peer tutoring benefits both maths and literacy in primary and secondary pupils and is effective across the curriculum. Low retaining pupils tend to benefit more at 6 months progress than high retaining pupils. In cross-age tutoring, it is more effective when tutors and tutees are not matched by attainment. And in same-age tutoring, there may also be a case, but it is less consistent finding. So if you want to investigate the research evidence behind peer tutoring, please visit the Education Endowment Foundation Toolkit and look at the peer tutoring strand. So this is a high-impact intervention for very low cost. So let's listen to Professor Steve Higgins, who's co-founder of Whatwood Education, just talking through some of the additional benefits of peer tutoring.
There are a number of benefits from peer tutoring for students. So if you look, for example, at cross-age peer tutoring, where you have an older student tutoring a younger student, people worry that the older student isn't going to be learning anything. But actually, the evidence suggests that they're likely to learn as much, if not more, than the student that they're tutoring. And that's partly because in order to teach it, you've got to think about how you present the idea, you've got to understand the task or the problem that you're teaching, and it develops your metacognitive awareness of problems of that kind or reading issues of that kind.
Professor Steve Higgins talking through the additional benefits of peer tutoring. So next, we're moving on to the purpose of the model. So this peer tutoring program is designed to provide a structured mathematical practice for Year 3 pupils through support from Year 5 peer tutors. The program combines consistent tutoring routines with flexibility for schools to use your own established approaches to mathematics teaching. So why schools use their own worked examples? Schools use different approaches, representations, and mathematical models when teaching primary mathematics. For example, schools may use bar models, fraction walls, number lines, pictorial representations, or concrete manipulatives when teaching fractions, for example. So the program has been therefore designed intentionally so that schools can embed their own methods within their tutoring sessions. So this is to ensure that pupils experience consistent mathematical language and representations across lessons. Peer tutors reinforce methods already taught by the class teacher. Schools retain autonomy over the curriculum implementation. Tutors develop confidence because they're using familiar approaches. The program becomes scalable and usable across different schools, and the focus remains on mathematical understanding rather than reproducing one fixed method. So in this program, the role of the teacher is important. So before the peer tutoring program begins, the Year 3 or Year 5 teacher models key examples using the school's preferred approach. So during tutor preparation, Year 5 peer tutors complete the teacher model worked example section of the tutor manual by recording the worked example, any diagrams or repetitions used in the class, and any key vocabulary. This ensures that the tutoring sessions reinforce classroom teaching rather than introduce alternative methods. The session structure follows this. So it starts with a review, a let's check, which is 2 to 3 minutes where tutors revisit prior knowledge and key vocabulary. The teacher model recall. Tutors revisit and explain the teacher model worked example using the school's agreed approach. Guided practice and talk through. So tutors support Year 3 pupils to complete structured practice questions. And then the review, which is a golden takeaway. Pupils explain their thinking and reflect on their confidence. Each session also includes an if you have time extension opportunity. So the next steps. Next, you'll learn about how to implement the intervention you'll be evaluating as part of the Richmond Project Maths Peer Tutoring Programme in your school. So please move on to the third video.